that you have people in before we formally start. But we are live now. Are 4 people on, so we're not going to wait very long before we get right into it. So, hello, ladies and gentlemen of Vanderbilt and the entire YouTube world, and welcome to Terrier Talk Season 2, Episode 27. Lots of people on today, and we have big week for boys soccer. And today we have 2 members of the program, Josh Rotolo and LeVar Henderson. Thank you for coming on, both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. So, this week, very eventful for you guys. Of course, not just 1, but 2 big playoff games. First against the 8 seed Bossier, and then the 4 seed Loyola Prep in a big, some people call it a revenge game from last year in the semifinals. Your coach had said something a little bit different about that on the pep rally, but both big games, quarterfinals and semifinals, and you won both. So, tell us, if you can, the story of the 2 games, if you can. So, LeVar, do you want to start?
Start with Bossier.
Okay, I'll start with it. So, Bossier, we didn't really think we would blow out Bossier. We thought Bossier would be like a 1-0 game.
Mm-hmm.
But when we came on the field, we just left all the tension, all the anxiety. We left it all in the locker room. And we stepped on that field, and we proved why we're the best team in our division.
And I will say this, from a spectator, I watched the first half of the Sterlington game. I expected this to be a lot closer to that, because I was able to watch the first half of the Bossier game too. I expected, after seeing the 16 seed play like that, I expect the I think they were the 8 seed, play like that as well. And then that doesn't happen. So I definitely understand that the difference in expectation between both performances. First of all, thank you for everyone commenting, all the interactions. Thank you for everyone watching. So, but yeah, I definitely saw that there was a difference in how you guys played. Colin, of course, got off to that great start, and but yeah, you can continue if you want. Just want to make that point.
Yeah. We went in the Bossier game thinking they're going to be really good. Then after the first 20 minutes, we put 4 on them. Then at halftime, Colin Ernie came to the team and was like, let's mercy rule this team. And
it's what happened, yeah. I have a question, because I wasn't able to make the second half. Was it a late second half mercy rule, or did it happen pretty quickly? How much time did you guys have left?
It was pretty late. It was
pretty late.
2 minutes, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Spidey scored his 2 to
make 2 goals.
Yeah.
That's great. So, and then that game, obviously no surprise that you won. And it's not really a surprise in the other game, but it was a little bit more contested in theory, of course, versus the 4 seed or the 5 seed, in Loyola Prep. So talk about that game, about what happened, the big things there. Either of you can start.
So I personally won this game. Was very nervous about this team. I feel like this game was very personal to our whole team, because we lost them last year in the semifinal, and they embarrassed us with the hype videos and everything. Mm-hmm. So we really, any team, we wanted to beat that team.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, it's kind of interesting saying that you wanted to beat that team when the other team you could have played in the semis was 80 White.
Yeah.
And that would have been interesting as well, but the story going into this game maybe was a little bit sweeter of a victory.
It's more personal. I don't think Edie White would have been a more worthy opponent to send us into the finals.
Mm-hmm.
Loyola I was there last year, and the way we all felt after that 1-0 loss, it was just hit us in the heart.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
And so for us to go in and to beat this team 4-0, it's just it's incredible.
Yeah, it's an amazing feeling, and kind of the roles were reversed a bit. Last year you guys were the 9 seed, beat the 1 seed St. Louis. A little bit emotionally drained, I would assume, after that big upset victory, and Loyola was able to catch you guys at that point and get the close victory after a 5 big hour, big long trip. Situation is reversed. You guys are the home team. They get the road victory against Edie White, and you guys are able to come in not just a 1-0 victory, but a big victory. So I could definitely see how great that could feel for you guys. So you guys won both games, which means you're in the state championship. And anyone who's been around the boys soccer team for the last few years knows exactly what that means. Do you guys want to explain that to any of the fans that don't understand that?
For us to go to the state championship, when the season starts, we think of it as one long journey.
Right.
And the final is basically the end of that journey. Like Nick Marley, our keeper. After we beat Loyola, I went up and I talked to Nick, and Nick was so psyched that we were going to the final because he cares about the sport and Vanderbilt soccer. And it's very personal to all of us, even to me. I don't play, but to Josh too.
Yeah,
he starts, and it's a great feeling. It's just great for any team.
Yeah, we work so hard for all of this, and for our little tradition every year, shaving our heads if we make it to state finals. This started 2 years ago, when I was in 8th grade. We're on the team.
I remember
with Matthew and Quentin on them.
Mm-hmm.
We all we made a pact to each other that we'll shave our heads at the end of the year if we make it to state finals, and we ended up doing it. And it was a fun experience, but
and then you won,
and
which made it even better.
Won.
Now it feels like I don't know if I were in that situation. You win 2 years ago, you're in that situation again. You got to do it now, right? And I think you guys are doing it pretty soon, if I recall correctly.
Even if it means looking in the mirror and hating yourself.
Hate yourself, but love the team, which is, I guess, in the end, what matters. And LeVar, you mentioned being a manager and that sort of difference, and I don't want to pivot to something interesting. So I actually, I probably share a lot of the same feelings you do when it comes to that. I'm in a similar situation with both the football and basketball teams. So I do wonder, what is your perspective on the soccer team, on being a part of the program, of course, being a part, in helping, I don't know exactly what you do, but helping, of course, with the team, but not being on the field. So how is that for you?
I love this program. I love the boys. They're like we're all one family. They're like brothers to me. And
and they seem to feel the same way.
And, even if we weren't in the fun, even if we weren't winning, I wouldn't trade my experience for anything. So my perspective on it, I see a lot of things that they don't see. I'm learning a lot, learning a lot of stuff about what they do on the field and what they do off the field that affects their playing and all that. So it's a great experience.
Yeah, it's a different set of eyes. You kind of get a unique perspective on the team where you're not a coach, where you don't really get to see everything in the locker room. Potentially, I don't know exactly how your guys' soccer locker room works, but I know in both football and basketball, the coaches don't always get to see everything that happens, but they also, but the students are on the field, the players are on the field, and you get that unique situation of both, of being able to see, both from the eyes of a coach and the eyes of a player. So definitely, it's a unique experience, but it's a fun one, and I can definitely vouch for just how enjoyable it is, and it seems you can too. So.
LeVar has always been like my mini coach on the field. Like he's actually helped me out a bunch this year. Coming off the field, telling me what I'm doing wrong, what I'm doing good, what I need to improve on. He's been big for me. Yeah.
Sometimes it just takes that extra set of eyes to help with that, and I think it is very helpful for any program, no matter how successful they are at that moment, to be. For someone like that to be on the team. I'm not really sure what I'm tempting you to do, Jonathan, but...
Wait, what do you say?
I'm not sure. Seemed to have a nice conversation between Ryan and John. Thank you guys for coming on and talking about this, whatever you're talking about, but...
Shaving his head. John, we're doing it.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, I assume you guys are doing it. That's everything that I've heard. But... I want to bring one last thing, and obviously this is kind of the big question. University High. The big state championship game, probably, unless baseball or softball, or girls basketball potentially get into a similar situation, the most important game in all of Terrier athletics this year. Quite possibly. What are the most important factors and the biggest keys to winning this game and taking home a state championship for you guys? I'll go ahead and start with Josh.
Our mentality, I think. That's the biggest thing. Going to the game knowing that we are a really good team and we should beat this team and not letting the game get overhyped for us.
But in the combination of confidence but also understanding, it's going to be a fight.
Yeah, it's going to be a fight.
You guys, not just seeding, but just from the eye test, probably are the better team. But U-High still U-High. U-High still great. U-High's, they're the 2 seed for a reason, and they're going to bring a fight to you for a state championship. So having both of their standings, that mentality definitely is important. LeVar, what do you think?
Going into this game, I think U-High is just gonna bring a knife to a gunfight. We proved in playoffs that we're a different team from regular playoffs.
Right.
And this is one of the best teams Vanderbilt's had for soccer in like the past couple of years. So going to this game, I think it's going to be a good game, but score prediction is definitely going to be like 3-0.
Okay.
I'm confident we're going to win this.
A lot of confidence, and that's I like that score prediction. I would love to see that. I'm going to try my best. I'll just say this now. I'm going to try my best to come to the game. Depends on how some of the other scheduling stuff lines up, but I would love to see that. To see a score like that. You mentioned bringing a knife to a gunfight. Is that for a schematic reason or a personnel reason, or is there a specific reason you say that?
I just say it because I know number one doesn't always mean everything, but just knowing these boys, just being around them, I just know that we're gonna be better. Like we came out against Loyola, against Bossier, guns blazing, just ready to take them on.
Yeah, and going back to what Josh said, if you come with that same mentality, you might be unstoppable. It just depends.
Yeah, anything can happen in the game. So it's all comes down to like who shows up.
Right. It kind of reminds me of. You also mentioned the difference between some one seeds. There's some one seeds, like say St. Louis last year, that there's more weakness to the game than to their game than meets the eye. You guys were able to exploit that. You guys were able to get a big win in that way. And then there are one seeds like you guys, where there isn't that big flaw. Last year, I talked a lot about how young of a team you were. You only had 3 seniors, lots of youth, lots of 8th graders and freshmen. And you have some young players playing, sophomore starting, as an example, 10 seniors. When a young team gets better, and when you have a young team, the thing is, eventually they become an experienced team. You guys are that experienced team now, and what a team you are. So thank you guys for coming on. Really enjoyed it, and I wish you guys the best of luck going into that big game against U-High on Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you.
All right. See you.
Again, thank you to LeVar and Josh for coming on. Just doing a little bit of moving around, of course, with only one person. Show. Evidently, we still have Mardi Gras celebrations happening 4+ hours after the parade ended. Just heard the door open and heard that a little bit. Person asks if will colonism affect the outcome? Don't really have a chance to answer that now. I think the right person to ask about that is Colin. But I would be very surprised if there was not at least some kind of prophecy or prediction or blessing beforehand. We will see. So, again, thank you to Josh and LeVar for coming on. Really enjoyed that. And best of luck to them in that game. It's a big game. I'm not going to talk a lot about it later on. I will mention it, however, later on, because obviously I can't talk about it as well as they can. They're on the field. They're out there experiencing it and knowing what that game truly is going to be like. So, but obviously it's a very important game. So we're going to go ahead and move on for now, and move on to from the biggest game for this week to moving on to the biggest game from last week. And that was the series of games that the girls soccer team had in their playoff brackets. So their playoff brackets were pretty similar to ours. They had their quarterfinal games around the same time, or not ours, the boys soccer team. The boys soccer team had their quarterfinal games, semis around the same time as well. So on Monday, the girls had a really big game at Lakeshore. So I want to set up this game beforehand before I talk about what happened and why it might be the best game for Vanderbilt athletics all year. Pending, of course, the big U-High game coming up for boys soccer, and just how important that game is and what happened in that game is for not just girls soccer and the future of girls soccer, but the future of really all girls athletics at Vanderbilt. So This year, all of the girls, like all the big girls in athletics, volleyball, basketball, soccer, all moved up a division because of their change in number of students. I think that's how that works. If I'm wrong on that, I apologize, but I know they all moved up a division. And all three have seen some success, whether that be in district or in playoffs recently. And so have gotten playoff wins, have gotten state championship appearances, depending on the team. So all three teams have shown success in Division 3. Now they move up to Division 2, and the question is asked, can they compete at that level? And it was a question that was definitely not just worth asking, but somewhat concerning in some ways. The girls' volleyball team showed that there was some struggle. They get to their first big playoff game and quarterfinals. I'm not going to talk too much about the comparison between specifically girls' volleyball and girls' soccer here. I think I've kind of talked about that enough at length over the last few weeks. But anyway, and they come up short. So girls soccer, same situation, 4 versus 5 game at Lakeshore. Probably not favored in the game. Lakeshore might be the best team in the state. That was something I heard Coach Hamady, I'll quote him as saying that. They might be the 4 seed, but they might be the best team in the state in their division. And they go into Lakeshore, and they start off down 2-0. Down 2-0, and they are, I think it's at halftime, they're down 2-0, and it's starting to look like the same situation that maybe the Vanderbilt girls sports, because remember, one thing important we're talking about just the girls, it's just the girls that moved up the division for all 3 sports, not the boys. Maybe the girls can't compete at that high level, can't get that big playoff championship victory against a St. Scholastica for volleyball, or against the St. Thomas More, or against the Lakeshore, or against whoever they're playing in this new division, in this new higher division. Maybe they can't quite compete with the big championship contenders. Those questions start creeping in. And then the game continues. It's 2-0. And then it's 2-1. And then with just a few minutes left to go in the game, big free kick. I don't know exactly what happened, who kicked this at what points, but free kick with the wind, top corner of the net, goes in, ties the game 2-2, and we go to overtime. And they fight in overtime, and they fight in overtime, and they fight in overtime. I think it's the 4th overtime. Final, I think, is like 10 or 5 minutes of sudden death, sudden victory. First goal wins. 4 minutes away from penalty kicks, just a few minutes away from penalty kicks. They get the game-winning goal and win the game on the road 3-2. In what is legitimately one of the most entertaining games, especially entertaining games that we've won in all of Terrier athletics all season. Absolutely phenomenal victory. And it means so much. And we'll talk about what happens afterwards. They, of course, go on to play St. Thomas More. But this game first. It's that big, marquee, program-defining victory in Division 2. No matter what happens against St. Thomas More, they show with this game that they can compete with the big state championship contenders. Lakeshore, despite being the 4th seed, was a big state championship contender. They were huge. They were really, really a great team that are seen as legitimate state championship contenders from year to year, every single year. And we got that win. That one win means so much for not just girls soccer in the coming years, but all girls athletics, because that shows if the girls soccer team can do it, then the girls volleyball team can do it. And maybe the girls basketball team can pull off a big upset potentially this week or next week. We'll talk about that later on. But that game means so much. So congratulations to the girls. I heard goalie Cindy Thompson, the defenders, had a great game, probably going down early on 2-0, and then keeping back, holding those 2 goals to just 2 goals all season. The rest of the game, great job to the entire girls team. Obviously, all the seniors, all the players, they were all great that day. To quote Coach Hamady at the pep rally on Friday, it was the guttiest performance he had ever seen from one of his teams in a soccer game, and he's been coaching for a long time. So a performance to never forget from girls soccer, and one of the best games of the entire year. So that happens, and it's gritty, it's physical, it's emotional, and it is emotionally draining. I talked about it with the boys last year. They're in a similar situation, 1-9, upset St. Louis. That's huge. It's a big emotional victory to pull off an upset like that. This game wasn't exactly an upset, but the way it happened, the way they won that game, there is a lot of emotional investment into that. And when you have that sort of emotional investment, that can turn into a weakness moving forward. The girls in a very similar situation to the boys last year. Take on St. Thomas More, the 1 seed, on the road at St. Thomas More, and they come up short. And that's... you don't like to see it, obviously. It's a bad loss. It's not a bad loss. I mean, St. Thomas More is amazing. St. Thomas More is a great team. But it's not exactly surprising. I mean, I don't think people would go into the game saying that they'd be shocked that St. Thomas More would win. I wouldn't have been shocked if we had won either. Of course, the game before, it was a 0-0 draw. So that was really early on in the season, so really anything could happen. St. Thomas More goes up 1-0 in the first half, and we just can't break through to get the victory. I don't know exactly how close we came at different points, but we came up short, 1-0, and there's only so much you can do at some points. So, despite that, St. Thomas More is still a 1 seed. It was still just a 1-goal loss, and a great performance from our girls. You know, playing that close with St. Thomas More and coming that close to a potential getting it into overtime and potentially pulling out a victory is, great. It's a great performance from them. And it shows that they really did have the heart of a champion in that tournament. They came up short in that game, but they didn't come up short against Lakeshore. And I think the thing to take away from this, even in a loss that obviously is devastating, obviously you don't want to end for the seniors, you don't want to end your season with a loss. Michael says that we're not shaving heads. That's unfortunate. I thought you guys were shaving heads. So it seems like I'm getting a bit of a mixed report about that. So for the boys, I guess we'll see. But anyway, girls soccer, obviously the loss, you don't ever like having a loss to end your season. But the program in the future of all of the girls' sports in a lot of ways, if they are to stay in Division II for a long time, it's the win against Lakeshore means a lot. And even competing against St. Thomas More means a lot. So know that, especially for the seniors, even if it didn't end the way you wanted it to end, there was a huge net positive outcome for how you guys finished the season the way you did. Obviously, the end of the girls' soccer season is not the way we wanted it to happen. Girls' soccer team. Moving on to basketball. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the boys. Actually, I'll go ahead and start with the girls because there isn't really anything to talk about for the girls. They did not have a single game this week. Their brackets came out. They had a bye for the first round. And they take on I think they had a bye for the first round. I don't know exactly how it works, but they take on St. Michael the Archangel tomorrow. So either way, don't have any games this week. Boys basketball did have games this week. 2 games, in fact. One against Assumption on Tuesday at home, the actual final home game against for the entire season against Assumption, of course. And then we took on Morgan City to actually finish our season on Friday on the road. So Assumption was the final home game. However, there's a reason we didn't have it as our senior night. I've said this multiple times throughout the last few weeks. It's because Assumption would have beaten the tar out of us, or beaten the tar off of us, whatever the saying is. It would have, going into the game, we all expected it to be a bad blowout. And then it wasn't. We finished the first half, and we're only down by 10. I think the score was 36-26. which is surprising for a myriad of reasons. Assumption is the better team on paper. They are taller, bigger, faster, stronger, deeper than us in every way, shape, and form. They're just a better team, and yet we limited them to 1 offensive rebound in the second quarter. We outscored them in the second quarter, and we're only down by 10. And at this point, we're thinking, well, wait a second. Is this possible? Assumption turned on the Jets in the third quarter. We ended up losing technically by 35, although we were down by 25 with like 3 minutes to go in the game. We sub in our GV teams, and then Assumption outscores us 10-0 in that section. So we end up losing by 35 technically, but we kind of held strong for a lot longer than you would have thought that we would have going into the game. So that is, a moral victory in a lot of ways, a big victory for us. So take what you can from the game. Obviously, you never really want to say that we, is a victory after losing by 35 points. But given the situation, in a lot of ways, it is a win. So we'll take it. What we will not take is the game that happened next, our final regular season game. A little bit going into the game that we know. It was Friday night. Haynes Academy had a game Friday night and Saturday. It was Thursday night, and Haynes had games Thursday and Friday, excuse me. And in both games, the situation was if we won our game, then we locked up the last spot in the playoffs for our division of boys basketball. If we lost our game, then we had to hope that Haynes lost both of their games in order for us to make playoffs. So this game is very important. And we go into it, and we play Haynes, and we play Morgan City. And despite the fact that in a lot of ways we played very well, we held them in the 50s score range. We played really good defense. They weren't shooting very well, but we get a lot of rebounds. I think Evan ended up with 8 rebounds, pretty tough from him. Play hard defense, play good defense, getting open shots on offense. We played well, but shots didn't fall. It was the worst shooting performance I have ever seen from any team, ever. And at least high school sports. And at least, a boys varsity team shooting this poorly from the field, and I will give you the number in just a second, is unheard of. So I'll go ahead and tell you the statistic. We shot 48 shots in that game. 48, which is somewhat normal for a boys basketball game. We made 9 of them. When I say from the field, I mean anywhere from 3, 15 feet out from the free throw line, just not free throws, but shot from the free throw line, jump shots, mid-range, from the block, layups, everything. From a 0-foot layup or a dunk attempt, we didn't have any dunk attempts, but from that to a half-court shot or a 3. All shots from the field, we went 9 for 48. That is unheard of. And it's not because we were taking bad shots. It's not because we were shooting particularly poorly. It's just the shots did not fall that day. And it's really hard to get on a team for a loss like that when it's, again, we didn't play poorly. It's just the shots really didn't fall. We could partially blame the rims if we wanted to. Morgan City rims are a little bit weird. But, it's just you kind of have to chalk that sort of thing up to bad. We've been improving as a shooting team over the last few weeks. We've been taking more shots. We've been genuinely improving, and it just didn't show today. The final score of the game was 51-20. And I want to make this statistic, I want to talk about one big thing with the statistic that I think is kind of interesting. And when I say this, I'm not really trying to knock the basketball team too much, although it does sound very bad for the basketball team. Because, again, they didn't play poorly. They did everything they needed to. Morgan City was playing a zone the entire game. You have to try to shoot them out of the zone. We were taking good shots. We're taking open shots, and they just weren't falling. We scored 20 points in that game. We scored at least 20 points in 7 of our 12 football games this season. We scored, I think it was I'm not going to go through it all, but we scored 6 times more than 20 points, and we scored 20 points exactly once. Yeah, that's not normal. Basketball games should not be that low scoring. Being held to 20 points is just unheard of. Again, it wasn't poor play. It just was unfortunate. The shots didn't, and sometimes that happens. With that being said, Haynes lost both of their games, and we are in the playoffs. So I'll talk about that matchup am I going to talk about it in a little bit? I'll talk about it in a little bit. So that's it for the review this week, and we're going to move on to the preview for next week, starting with the beginning of the baseball season. Baseball spring sport, of course, starts up this week, and a really interesting matchup this week for our baseball team. We play in a 2-game series, first on Thursday, I think it's Thursday, at Nichols, and then secondly, on Friday at home, we play E.D. White. So a few notes about this game. This game was last season it was our season finale. Mostly because it was a district game. So we finished the season with that game. And of course, those 2 games, E.D. White was 26-0 and then 27-0. We were 20-7, or we were 20-6 and then 20-7. Both teams were on fire. Of course, E.D. White had won 27 games in a row. We had won 20 games in a row going into the series. We lose the first game at E.D. White, then we win the second game at home in a big 10-1 victory. Great pitching performance, great performance in general from everyone, and a huge win against an undefeated team. So that is still going on in our minds as a grudge match in a lot of ways. We have a chance to, for both teams, of course, the series was split that time, a chance to get back at both teams for that. First at Nichols, so it's a neutral site game, but obviously much closer to E.D. White than us, is our true season opener. Maybe we had a game beforehand. I apologize if we did. But our big season opener against E.D. White. Obviously, it's a big game. Both programs are very good. E.D. White just came off of a 1-loss regular season, and we came off of a great season ourselves, sharing the district championship. Not in the same district this year, however. So it's a big game. First at Nichols, and then the next day at home. So wish them the best of luck in that beginning of the season game. So moving on to basketball. So girls basketball has an interesting week. So we start by taking on St. Michael the Archangel. That is a 9 versus 8 game. We ended up with the 9 seed in our playoff bracket. And we have a road game versus St. Michael the Archangel. And this girls' basketball team is really interesting in a lot of ways. The way that we are structured, not just our personnel, but also our grades, as in what year everyone is, we're set up to potentially really make a run. You will not see a more experienced basketball team maybe in the entire state of Louisiana. Any division, I mean. When you have 11 seniors, you can legitimately make a claim to that. And there are 11 seniors that are all going to have legitimate playing time, that are going to play well, play with that experience that you think a senior would. And we do that. We do it well, and we play well, and we play all these very close games, and we usually come up short as of this season. But we've had that experience in close games. That means more for the games later on than this one. This should be an even matchup. But my point with this is, with the bracket in the future, this is the sort of team that can make a dark horse run. We're obviously not going to be projected to win any state championships at the 9 seed. But we can compete, I think, with anyone. Going into St. Michael the Archangel, they might be the 8 seed, but we can win that game. That game is very winnable. We can go out there and truly compete with them and win that game on the road. I should be at that game. Just as a note, I think it's in Baton Rouge. I'll be in Baton Rouge this week. Should be there. So I guess I'll see you guys then. That is tomorrow at 6 o'clock if I recall correctly. Excuse me. Big game, of course, first round playoffs. Then, if we win, we play Lee Magnet. So this is when the big dark horse potentially making a run, pulling off a big upset can happen. And the other thing that's really interesting is that this game might be at home if it were to happen. I know, depending on the sport, LHSAA talks about like if you're the road team in the first round and you play a team that won their home game the first round, then you'll have the home game. I'm not sure exactly why, but that's how they do it, depending on the sport. I've heard conflicting reports as to whether or not that's the case in basketball. One coach said that it is, another coach said that it isn't. I don't know what happens. I know the girls' basketball team is convinced that is the case, that if they win, they'll get a home game versus League Magnet. I don't know if that's the case or not. But if that is the case, I'll try my best to be there and hopefully announce. It just depends on the situation. But either way, whoever they end up facing, wherever that game is, of course you have to beat St. Michael the Archangel first, and that's, you're not even probably favored in the game, being the road team, but whatever ends up happening, I wish them the best of luck. Very important games, and I think they legitimately have a chance to go and make a big run. Moving on to boys basketball, I hate to be a pessimist, but I don't have that same faith or that same hopes for the boys team. We should be playoff brackets don't actually come out until Monday, but we should be playing St. Thomas More, the 1 seed. No. Yeah, we had flashes of against Assumption. We played them closer than we probably should have. But St. Thomas More is really good. They're the 1 seed, and unlike Assumption, where there's not really much at stake in that game, there's a lot at stake for St. Thomas More. They're the 1 seed. Of course, it's playoffs. And if you lose, you go home. So it's a really important game for them. They're going to try to beat us very hard, and they're going to beat us. I hate to be pessimistic about it, but it's probably going to be the case. When we have 5 wins and we just missed 39 shots in a game, I can't be too optimistic about it. Obviously, I wish us the best of luck. And I'll probably be there, but depending on the situation. But wish us the best of luck going into that game, but I don't have the best of confidence going into it. Girls team could pull off an upset. I believe that. Boys team, not so much. And finally, the main event for the week is the boys soccer game, of course, the state championship game against University High. Big game, of course. I'm not going to talk too much about it. I can't really give you great details. Those details will be found in the interview with LeVar and Josh earlier on. So if you have any, more insight on that, that's the place to go. I can't really give you anything extra on it. I'm just going to make the remark that obviously it's a very important game. Potentially the most important game of the entire year for any sport at Vanderbilt. Depends on how, the other seasons go. But huge game. Boys have a chance to take home a big state championship game. A big state championship. So not much more than I wish them the best of luck. I think they can win the game. They're probably favored into it. Of course, they're the 1 seed. So good luck, guys. I would think you guys have a great chance of winning the game. And I hope you win, of course. I'll be rooting for you. So, and that goes for all Terrier athletics this week. So I wish everyone the best of luck going into their big games this week. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you, anyone who stuck around the whole time, for sticking around. Hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you guys next week. Same time, same channel. I will see you then.